wear a suit and tie, but it's I'm looking pretty dapper. I have a shirt and a tie, if I say so myself, but that's a face for radio. You can kind of understand when people do radio. Now you're really going to go look at it. Well, Rush Limbaugh, he said that he thought that was such a, and he does video, so I don't understand. He says, but sometimes television's not a good thing for a talk show host because people get an idea of what an individual looks like, and then when they find out what they look like, then their perceptions change, and they're either disappointed or that voice, that personality comes from that face, that mouth, those teeth. It's funny when I meet people. It's true. Live, he's right about it. It's either one or the other. Like, they're just amazed. Like, that's you? Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think I'm like so much different that my voice sounds, amped up, hyped up. It is what it is. People recognize my voice, and it's not so odd. That what it is odd is like Howard Stern. His voice is like heavily EQ'd. A lot of FM jocks, and he used to be a DJ. Back in the day. But anyways, with his talk show, they amp up his voice. So when you hear him in real life, it doesn't quite sound like him. Futures on the S&P, the 500 index, if that's something that you look at, they reversed gains to slip as much as 0.3% as Trump spoke. But the yen strengthened, while the Mexican peso weakened 0.2%, as the president also said that he might terminate the North American Free Trade Agreement at some point. Now, his comments on the NAFTA negotiations once again brings the general direction towards obstructing free trade and raise concerns over its impact on global trade. Who says this? Hideo Ishiguro. He's a senior strategist at Daiwa Securities in Tokyo. Trump has asked for $1.6 billion to begin construction of the wall, with Congress under pressure to pass some kind of spending bill to keep the government opening after September 30th. But the Republicans in Congress haven't shown much appetite for this fight to spend potentially what they say is billions more on a border barrier. Either the funding would add to the deficit. At the same time, Republicans are trying to figure out how to pay for tax cuts. So this is going to be a very interesting issue. Does the government completely get shut down? Is the stock market going to take a hit? To me, if all the things that he says, nationalism, bringing back factories, bringing back jobs. I mean, did you know that the company that makes the iPhone, they're going to be building it here? More companies to come back here, stop building overseas, all the things that Trump said, it's going to take a hit. But this is the rearrangement that it will have to be, and how they actually roll this thing out. A lot of companies, all they really care about is the bottom line. They don't want shakeups. They don't want change. They don't want this change, even if we're taken advantage of, because they're making a profit regardless. So this is going to get under the skin. Obviously, a lot of folks are not going to be very happy about this. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said this past Monday in a speech that he sees zero chance that Congress won't lift the debt limit. Trump's Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says that the same event that he will run out of authority to stay under the limit late next month, and his priority when Congress returns early September is ensuring it's lifted. So this historic tax cut, while he provided no details of any planned legislation, he urged congressional Democrats to support it. Democratic senators in states he won should be particularly wary. Trump said most Senate Democrats have said that they'll refuse to support any legislation that provides a tax cut to the highest earners. The Democrats are going to find a way to obstruct. And that's going to be where we're at on many of these particular things. So the months ahead are going to be very interesting. Very ambitious plans. Legislation is where it's at in Washington, folks. If we can't get it passed, the House and Senate, it's not happening. Folks, you know it doesn't become law. There's only so many things you can do with a pen. And our debt ceiling is pretty darn high. Now, it would have been genius if Mexico actually paid for that wall, as Trump said. That would be great. And I think eventually they can, with tariffs and all that coming into the country, which really they haven't, and to make all countries pay, which we haven't. And that's why the trade deals are so bad. There's a huge deficit between us and China, which has been so bad. China and Mexico, some of the biggest, worst, and China was kind of even left out last night. But again, you don't want to piss off the Chinese. No, don't do that. There's a bank in the Trump Tower, and a lot of people rent from Trump that are Chinese, and they're very smart people. They're very intelligent. But the leaders, and let's remember, communist China, they own a lot of real estate over here, a lot of our farms, and they own a lot of our debt. It's not going to be an easy one, but it would, I think, shame them. There's investigations going on with property, intellectual property rights, with electronics and a lot of companies where they're stealing, back engineering, putting their labels on them and things like that. If we can shame them and prove emphatically and shame them with the media, with newspaper reports and all this other stuff, it's going to bring their stock market down. There's a lot of people in America and around the world that trade with the yen and trade, and that's a beautiful thing. But, man, if we're always thinking with our pocketbooks and not for the security and welfare of our citizens, I'm all for shutting down our government. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's gutsy. He's trying to get a hold of these senators and saying, look, this is what I'm willing to do if I can't get my way and I can't get my agenda across, but will it be effective? It's a tough thing, but this is what Donald Trump campaigned on. And I think he believes that if he cannot get this thing done, he won't be reelected. I believe that he wants to get this done. He's going to push, but there are going to have to be some tangibles. There's going to have to be some really clever ideas on how to be able to, and some companies are going to lose out on money immediately because of it if you renegotiate these trade things, and you're going to piss off some countries. But shoot, are we so worried about what everybody else thinks? What about what's good for America first? And you know what? It's, again, for some, a new concept because we've been left behind, and so many people have felt that way, and that's why Donald Trump is the president. He resonated with the people that knew that this American dream was fading fast, and it would never become a reality because of their wages that have slipped so badly, living so poorly, and don't have a pot to piss in. Literally, I'm just being blunt. It breaks my heart to hear the stories of so many people that have given so many things, pensions disappearing. What pension? Social Security not even making a dent hardly in their life. You can't rely on that. Well, the cost of living is unbelievable. Places that were at once upon a time manageable, it's not the case anymore. People are eating beans and rice and beans like Dave Ramsey, his advice on getting out of debt. It's a good idea, but do you just want to eat that? It's different times, my friends, that we live in. That's for sure. And I pray that there's good deals that are wrought, but there's so much corruption out there. There's so much greed that's out there. And to fight these machines, the people that control it, these billionaire companies, these billionaires that have this money and are able to really control so much, do so much, these machines that Trump has to fight against, and in Washington, there's so many moving parts. So many moving parts to be considered. And, Trump being a billionaire, he understands how they think and understand it. And he's going to make a lot more enemies. And that's why the establishment, they don't like him so much. Because, in a way, this could take away their income. It could take away, let's term limits. Talk about, no, let's not talk about that. It's bad for a politician. He just, he's not trying to win a popularity contest. And I think that's a good thing. I think he needs to keep it up. Well, the Bible says, beware when all men shall speak well of you. So many people looking for approval from what everybody else says instead of being resolved in your values, what you think is right. And Donald Trump is always danced to his own drum. And anybody that's really changed or done anything significant or important, they've done the same thing, no matter what anybody says. If you're getting religious, well, Jesus certainly did. You think he cared the way that they did things with these? Because it just was an outward show. It wasn't real. As people just, outwardly just put on a show. It sounds no different from what people do today. They put on a big show, but there's no substance. There's nothing tangible to point to. It's where people try to discredit Trump and say, this guy has no victories. He has nothing. This guy's been winning for a long, long time because he's a fighter. He's a fighter. He fights for what he believes in. And the rallying calls that he's going to fight for us. Us being the American people, Mr. and Mrs. America. Yes, the deplorables. Count me in. Call me a deplorable. That's okay. I'm not offended. I think that's a name. It's great. Put it on there. I'm one of those. Yeah, I'm one of those. Call me a deplorable if I just want to make our country great again. Respected again, safe again, united again. We are divided, folks, because of the propaganda, in my opinion, that the media puts out in their newspapers and on their television shows. They are the ones, and I've said this many times on my broadcast, as you know, if you're a longtime listener, frequent listener to For the People, which you should, because it makes a lot of sense. But when you hear the stuff like a poison, kind of like what North Korea does to their citizens, and the propaganda is pumped out, people start believing it, even if it's BS, because they don't have another source. CNN is the gospel truth, according to CNN.